Hi, everybody. Welcome to Conscious Conversations. I'm your host, Katie Augustyn. So I'm the founder of the Transformation Center, which is based in Westport, Connecticut. And at the center, we do a variety of workshops, classes. We even have sound baths in the backyard during the nice months. And that's in addition to the individual healing, transformation coaching sessions that I do. And some is on Zoom and some is in person. So you can visit our website. We'll put up the contact info. It's transformationcenterct.com. Would love to hear from you. So, I started the Conscious Conversation show many years ago because I love meeting new people and talking to them about what they're up to. It's just so exciting for me to learn what people are doing and where they came from. Yes. So I'm excited today that my guest is Courtney Krankall. Welcome to the show, Courtney.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm really glad that you could make it. And I'm going to read a little bit about you before we get started.
Sure.
And then we'll talk. Okay. All right. So Courtney Krankall is a brand and lifestyle photographer based in Fairfield County, Connecticut. We're going to put up her contact info so they'll see more about you. And she's originally from California. She holds an MFA in costume design and has a diverse background in design, sales, and management. Her passion lies in visual storytelling. Yeah, hence the photography. Yeah. And she uses the photography to reflect both personal lives and professional brands with clarity and authenticity. Yeah. It's true because I've seen some of her work, and you can see some of it on the slide too. So Courtney's core value as a photographer is to understand the genuine you and bring it out in the images she creates. By getting to know her clients, she ensures a sense of familiarity and comfort during shoots, which is so critical to having a relaxed person that you're shooting.
Absolutely.
And that allows authentic moments to unfold naturally. So nothing is forced.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Well, I love meeting and talking to people who have discovered their passion and really followed their heart. Mm-hmm. And that sounds like, is that true for you?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, I started in a creative career and followed my heart as a young person and had that kind of, youthful energy and trust in the universe and pursued that successfully for, a good chunk of my 20s and into my early 30s. But then I started having some, chronic migraines, working in costume design. You're working on multiple shows at a time, once you're kind of up and running.
Yeah.
And you might be in tech and late nights, dress rehearsals for one show, research phase of another, shopping and prep and fittings for another. Wow. So it's it's definitely a 6-day-a-week business as it is the way it's structured, but then also, I'd have to be doing my, paperwork and things on that 7th day. So there wasn't very much room in there for taking care of myself. It was definitely like on this kind of really driven, path to just be immersed in that creativity. And so
sounds very stressful.
It was, it was fun, and people say, "Oh, it's such a great, fun career," and it is, and it was, there's aspects I for sure miss about it, but it was not structured, and unfortunately, a lot of creative fields, as we know, aren't really paid what they're worth.
Commensurate with the work involved.
Exactly, yeah, and so I think that was the reason why. Is like if you have to take so many jobs to get health insurance through the union or to, pay your rent in New York City, then it's, you're working a lot and you're assisting a lot. And I got to work with Isaac Mizrahi and some really, notable people, Tony Award winners and fashion designers. But to do that, you got to be all in.
Well, you're sacrificing something.
Yes.
Sounds like, and maybe your health, if you were having migraine headaches, that was caused by the stress?
Yeah, the stress and the lifestyle. I wasn't getting regular sleep, having some of those late nights and then early mornings. So just a lot about the lifestyle wasn't working for my body. And that's when my neurologist said, like, can you take a break? Like, this is when we're getting into the lifestyle questionnaire and all of these elements. let's take a step back, focus on, getting your body healthy and into like a regular schedule, a regular routine, a regular paycheck. So you're not chasing down those, things or feeling like you have to say yes to every job. And so, a friend of mine was working in the furniture business and they were opening a brick and mortar in Soho and said, hey, just come sell furniture, take a break. And it was great because I could do that and finish up a few of my costume projects on the side for a while, like during my vacation or time off or weekends. And then it just sort of became the routine. I never really intended to fully leave costume design, but it just became this kind of safe place where I was finally able to have a little bit of that like reset and not be worried about a lot of the things I'd been worried about as an artist.
Yeah, so it sounds like some part of you was craving that regularity or that more calm environment, perhaps.
Yeah. So it worked for me in that respect, and I was getting acknowledged at work and getting promoted, and so that felt nice, of course, as well.
Right.
And it was tangential to design because I was helping people with their furniture decisions, and I would help homeowners choose fabrics, and so there were elements of it that were still creative. So I think that's why I sort of ended up in it so long.
How long?
Over 10 years.
Okay.
Because it was creative tangentially. And as I would move up to other positions, I started working with interior designers and architects, and so I'd be more involved in a professional kind of aspect of design and less with the homeowner specifically. But ultimately, it wasn't creating my art. I was sort of helping support theirs. And so I knew for many years that I needed to sort of reclaim that for myself.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, because you weren't literally creating something.
Yes, exactly.
Helping other people.
Yeah.
Yeah, but things come when they're there to help us. It feels like that did kind of fall in your lap.
Yeah,
so to speak.
I mean, there were a lot of benefits to it. I was able to, buy a place in New York City. I was able to save money to travel, around the world and do some things that were like other goals of mine. So it definitely allowed, made space for other things in my life, which are great. And I don't regret it. It's just sort of not the path that I thought I would be on.
Right.
Yeah.
But it served its purpose, and
Yes.
it served you well. It sounds like you must have been pretty good at it if you were making, a good living.
Yeah.
So that's important. So when did you do your world travels? Because I know you did at some point.
Yeah, so that was 2010, 2011,
Okay.
after I'd been working for a while, and I felt like, I don't know, I just always loved watching the Travel Channel. I had studied abroad in England when I was a junior in college and did some traveling at that time around Europe when I could on breaks. And there was just more of the world I knew I wanted to see. I knew I wanted to see different perspectives. Having moved to New York City from California, that was a whole eye-opening experience, but I knew there was still more beyond,
Yeah.
And so I just did a lot of research. I saved my pennies. I cut down on social activities. I mean, I was very kind of exacting with my budget. But I was backpacking, so it was not like a glamorous, I'm going to travel around the world, but I got a backpack, would practice walking around with 45 pounds of stuff in it to like make sure I could do that.
Oh my goodness.
And I went through Southeast Asia, so Thailand, Cambodia, Laos, Vietnam, and then I went down to New Zealand, Australia, and ended in Bali.
Oh my goodness.
A little bit of an Eat, Pray, Love tour.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Well,
Yeah.
so I was in Cambodia and Vietnam last year.
Oh,
I
yeah.
loved Cambodia.
Yeah.
It was
was beautiful.
Just such a beautiful spiritual place, and the people are so nice and warm and
Absolutely. Yeah, like in Cambodia and Laos, like I had a couple times where I wasn't either feeling well, or like once on Laos, I just like fell like on the sidewalk, tripped on a cobblestone, like really ate it on my knee. And within seconds, like a street vendor was there, like helping me up. Are you okay? Like not really even couldn't speak English very well, but just you could tell from that they were generally caring about how I was, and like running to get some salve from what they had. Even a waiter at a restaurant, like 2 days later, was like, saw my wound and was like, do you need something? I mean, it was just like the level of care and attention was like so beautiful there.
You were on your own traveling.
Yeah.
What did you I guess learn from that trip?
Well, it's a lot of self-reliance and confidence, I think, knowing you can do it. I studied a lot of other women solo travelers, taking a lot of their words of wisdom of how to do that safely.
Okay.
And I also sort of avoided certain places I would have loved to have gone, but just felt like maybe it was a little bit, might not have been the safest thing for me. So that was kind of, being smart about that was important. And I hardly ever felt unsafe, aside from every once in a while, you know, things happen and you can't predict. But, and I think when I was in New Zealand and Australia, I did some woofing, which is like willing workers on organic farms. And that was a way to, because those countries are much more expensive than Southeast Asia, allowed me to really get to know the local community and give back to the community, and also like helped with my budget as well. So it's like a work stay where you you give them like 20 hours of work on their farm, and then they show you around and they give you room and board. So
you get to stay there.
You get to stay there while you're working. Yeah. And my grandparents had an almond orchard in Northern California, so I'd had some experience as a kid going up, you know, in the summers to help them with that. So it was fun to get out of the city routine, which I'd become very accustomed to, and sort of put myself back out in nature and kind of reconnect in that way.
Oh, great idea.
Yeah.
Huh.
So
that was another, sounds expanding.
Yeah, it really was. And I was also looking, I think that was the juncture where I felt like that trip might give me clarity on where to come back and land in a creative job. And I was hoping, like, once I came back, to not go back into furniture and sort of to have that be my reset button. Life had a little other plan. Within 8 days of being back, I met my husband at a wedding. My now husband, I should say, and we started dating. And so I think my cup was so full from this amazing trip that I had, the people that I met, the relationships I built, you know, the cultures that I learned about.
How long were you gone on the trip?
Almost 10 months.
Oh, okay, long time.
Yeah. I did some volunteering in Southeast Asia too, and, you know, through meeting some people who taught English there. Like, I ended up meeting some of those people down the road who also had travel plans. So it was like, it was great to just meet people out in the world and fellow travelers, as well as those people. So the culture aspect. So my cup was full from that experience when I came home, and then I met my husband, and it was, you know, that was fun and exciting too, to be dating. And I knew I had this mortgage I had to pay, and I'd saved a little bit of my money to pay for those first couple months of mortgage payments when I got back. But I think I fell back into that fear of, like, okay, I already have an MFA, I'm already paying that debt down. I have my mortgage. What do I really go back to school for? I hadn't really found the clarity. I was interested a lot in textile design, and also the environmental impact of fabric and dyeing is really terrible, and I'd seen some of that, you know, firsthand, like in Southeast Asia.
Right.
And so I was kind of trying to find an environmental fashion kind of aspect to pursue that sort of combined both those interests. But for whatever reason, I just didn't find the right thing that felt good, or it didn't feel like the financial fear, I think, was still holding me back, of like how much more I would have to commit in learning. So I basically just had originally gotten a job back in sales just till I could figure it out. And it just became that life was what it was.
Yeah.
And I was with my husband, we were getting to know each other. So I didn't prioritize that kind of reset at that moment.
Well, to me, that totally makes sense.
Yeah.
You know, you're still young, obviously. So there's no, I mean, the way I look at it is things happen when they're meant to happen.
Yeah.
And maybe you weren't quite ready.
Yeah. I think that's probably true.
Yeah, and it's not like you were miserable doing the furniture sales. You know, it's not like going to a factory and being in a bad environment or something.
An unsafe environment. Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I had colleagues that I enjoyed, and you know, so there were elements that were definitely positive about it.
Yeah. So how did you end up in Connecticut then?
Yeah, so my husband's actually from Stratford. He grew up here.
Okay.
But when we started dating, he came into the city and lived with me. And then once we had our son, we were going to try to move back here maybe around when he was about 1. We kind of had to expedite that a little bit. So we moved here 2018 in the winter. He was 8 months old. And I had gotten kind of a recruiting offer from a company in Greenwich, which was just kind of like very serendipitous. We basically, you know, put an offer in the house that was accepted, and I was like, oh boy, now I'm gonna have to find a job, you know, and gratefully that just kind of came to me very easily. And so that's what I did when we first moved. But again, very quickly I realized like I needed a change.
Yeah, there's something else.
Yeah, and my husband had seen this for years, and we'd had conversations about it, but we knew when we were moving and having our son, it wasn't the right time.
True.
There's a lot of finances involved. So by 2019, we were starting to put a plan together, and on Valentine's Day 2020, I quit my sales job. And then there was COVID came along, yeah. So I used that time to be at home with my son, who was 2.5 at the time. We homeschooled him for preschool. My mom was living with us at the time, so we just kind of had our family community there.
Wow, well that was actually fortunate you had moved out of the city.
Yes.
That was a really tough place to be.
Yeah, we still had my apartment there, which was trying to close. Supposed to close in April 2020, did not till September. So, but it all it came out in the end. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was able to spend some of that time there.
So in a way, that's a beautiful little interlude because you know you can't get that time back.
Right.
You know, when our kids are young, it's just goes so fast, right?
It does.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think that was really part of the impetus for my husband, because we decided like that at this point we probably weren't going to have any more children. You know, we were a little older when he was born, so to really be able to take advantage of that time when he was young and be there.
That's great.
So that was a really good experience.
So then how did you rediscover your passion for photography?
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
So that was something that had always been just a little bit of a hobby, and particularly when I traveled, I enjoyed it, but I was very much a kind of like point and shoot kind of photographer where I didn't have a camera that had manual adjustments. So that was something about 12 years ago that I really wanted to learn after I came back from my trip and had just like a very small serious camera. My husband bought me one for my birthday where I could actually learn the craft of, you know, having that control over an image. What do you want to really manipulate the light? What do you want to do to manipulate the background? Do you want it blurry? Do you want it crisp? You know, all those decisions you can make when you have a, you know, manual control, mirrorless or DSLR camera. So
that's where the creativity comes in.
Exactly. Yeah. You really get to choose and explore and have more fun,
play with
more
it,
playful,
play with
right?
it.
Not just what's before my eyes, but how do I see this, and how do I want to, you know, what do I want to emphasize in this image?
Right. And like you were saying in your intro, storytelling. What's the story you want to tell, and how?
Yes.
So that's beautiful.
Yeah, it's like I think my theater background has really put that concept forth at the forefront, because we all have a story to tell. We all have a unique value proposition. And whether it's in a relationship interpersonally or whether it's in a business, you know, conveying that authentically is how you forge your deepest connections with friends and with clients. So, not sure whether to divert into how I became a branding photographer, I guess, and that storytelling piece of things was that coming out of COVID, my friend and neighbor Emily was interested in opening a meditation studio, and we talked a lot about how we wanted kind of mindfulness practices for our kids growing up in this world. And that was something that we both enjoyed discussing and sharing. Oh, have you seen this book, or you read this book? And she already had some structure of this business in place, but not a physical location. And so she had invited me to help her open Pause and Purpose, which was here in Westport, just across the street from the library. And at that time, for a soul purpose, it felt like for sure a yes. Like my gut reaction was just yes.
So that was aligned, like the spirituality aspect of it, the meditation, all of that.
Yeah. So that was really, even though I was like, well, it's not painting, it's not photography, it's not writing, but it just felt like what the world needed and what I needed to do.
Spoke to you.
Yeah.
And maybe you hadn't been fulfilling that side of you for a while or something.
Yes, I think so. Yeah, and I think coming out of, you know, COVID too, there was such a interest and need for that community again, because I had literally asked Emily, like, you work in this space, you've developed these, you know, online meditations with people, like, where can I do this in person? She's like, there aren't that many places that have reopened yet or that are doing these kinds of gatherings. There might be a yoga class, but not a gathering where you're also discussing and journaling and working through the things in your life that you need to, you know, process. It's been sort of like a kind of go to the yoga, take the deep breaths, enjoy the physical movement, but maybe it didn't always have that spiritual or interpersonal dynamic connection. And so that's something that she really wanted to build, and that resonated with me for sure.
So you went with her for a while, right?
So we did that journey, and that was really meaningful. And I think some of the relationships I have in this community are just continuing to go strong, like from that space. But ultimately, she knew that I wanted to be more creative. She had been a photographer, a wedding photographer herself back in the day. She recognized that I was like taking classes on the side for my own personal edification. And at one point, when some positions had to shuffle around with people moving and different roles changing, she said, you know, Courtney, I'm going to give you an option. Either you can wear all the hats, or you can just be the photographer, you know, like, would you, you know, manage the studio and the marketing and the community relationships and all of these things, or do you want to just take photos? I think in a way she was like lovingly pushing me out of the nest, like, you just know you need to like do this. And, you know, I spoke to my husband about it, who, again, very supportive, and he knew that this was a long time coming, and he's like, do it. So, so that
was the transition.
That was the transition. And so I was able to support Pause and Purpose through, you know, photos and a little video as well. And working in that space, being conscious of the energy and the vulnerability that people bring to that space was something that we really took seriously and tried to preserve and protect. So everybody had the option of opting out or just being photographed from behind if they didn't want their face shown. But it is a delicate thing in a space like that, but we really wanted to be sure people were comfortable.
I mean, yes, I can see that, and I was there, a few times, and I really saw some of the work that you did, and it did honor that.
Thank
You know,
you.
why don't we put up Courtney's slide again, because it has a couple of examples. I think one is at Pause and Purpose is one of those.
Yes, the third one at the end is Katie Kozlowski, one of the mentors at Pause and Purpose, leading the class. And she's someone who just lives life with so much energy and verve, and I feel like she's 20 years ahead of the curve.
She's so authentic. It's
Yes,
amazing.
yeah. And so what I loved about that photo was she was just encouraging everyone to like really get expansive and like embody joy.
wow.
And, you know, it's just palpable. Like you can see it on her own face that, you know,
Yes.
that she could feel it. And by virtue of that, it becomes infectious.
Yeah, that's how she is.
Yeah, very much.
You caught her energy, I thought, very well.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So yeah, like through those photos, it was a great learning experience in how to support a business, what kind of photos tell that brand story, what do they need, from the small detail shots to the wider, expansive shots that might show, you know, a business owner in the place where they work, that gives the visual context, but also conveys an emotion.
Yeah, right. That makes sense, because I bet it's tricky to get both, though, to get the setting, because you want to tell a story, but then you want them to also be communicating something, right?
Yes.
As they're there.
Yeah, and I think part of my process that I've developed is sort of a questionnaire, consult call. I really do a lot of, I really want to know about the business and where you come from as a business owner, what your brand story is, so that we can share that, because people, you know, buy from people they know, like, and trust. How can they know you if they don't know your story? You know, just seeing a picture of someone holding their tool, like, while that's an important part of of what you do, that in and of itself may not be enough for a client to book you. So trying to really combine all those images, all those kind of trends that a business takes, from even thinking about your origin story, you know, maybe even being vulnerable and sharing with your clients that maybe like you didn't always know everything, but this is the path that you were on, and this is, you know, your knowledge base now. And also a little behind the curtains always helps. People love to kind of see, you know, how the lasagna is made. So like if you can get behind the sort of perfection of it and get into the process, it'll get a little messy. Sometimes that's intriguing to people too. So every business is different. So this is going to present, you know, there's not a formula for each one, but in getting to know my clients and seeing their history, I can find a way to tell their story.
Wow.
And I think like an example of that is Tanvi Gandhi is one of my clients who was also a mentor at Pause and Purpose. And when she filled out her questionnaire, she really was talking about the seasons of life. And she wanted to have her session in spring. Like right now, we're actually doing it in a week, her spring session, which shows kind of awakening, blooming, you know, a lot of nature.
All that imagery.
All that imagery of things flourishing, right? Is like her work is to bring that out as a naturopathic physician and acupuncturist.
That's great.
And as I read that, I'm like, this is great. But I think also part of this story is the winter, is the when you're not there yet to the blooming. It's the process that we go through in all the seasons, that nature goes through in all the seasons. And I think to visually tell your story, we'd be remiss if we didn't do a winter session. And so we did a much shorter kind of on the fly in the snow, you know, went out and just got some imagery of her out in nature in winter. So sort of counterbalance that language and that narrative with spring. So that's a visual way of showing growth, rebirth, death, and all those cycles that we go through, you know, in life.
It's a great example.
Yeah.
Super. Well, we have about one more half a minute, I think.
I really talked a lot.
Yeah, we covered a lot. Is there anything else that you didn't? I know you do also personal photography, not just branding.
Yeah,
so that's
absolutely.
Something else.
You know, I love showing a family's interconnected journey as well as a mom. That's something I do. headshots, of course. You know, branding can cover the gamut, so whether or not you need a full branding shoot or, yeah, that's it.
I know. We're going to have to wrap up now,
Okay.
Courtney. But thank you so much for being here.
Absolutely.
And thank you to our audience for being here in Verso Studios. Love you guys. Namaste.